Welcome to Pop-Plädoyer, the podcast where misunderstood pop albums get their day in court. Today's defendant is an album that arrived with glowing reviews, immaculate production, a fully realized pop vision, and somehow still felt strangely overlooked in the wider mainstream conversation. We're talking about Demi Lovato's latest studio album, It's Not That Deep. And honestly, today's guest could not be a more perfect fit for this conversation. He's a Maltese artist, pop culture obsessive, and a host of the podcast Gerlijs, where he interviews women in pop music and explores the emotional, cultural, and chaotic beauty of pop stardom. Welcome, Johann. I'm so glad you're here today.
Hello. I prepared an intro. Wait, I need to look at my thing and make sure I say it right. Are you ready? Hallo, ich bin Johann Agius von Pop-Gerlijs und dir set den Disney Channel. Just because of the person we're discussing. That was a really bad way. Damn.
Well,
Hello.
It sounded okay in German. Not too bad, to be honest. I would probably sound more off in Maltese if I tried to say something. So
We're
thank you
not
for
going to
putting in
teach
the
you
effort.
Maltese today. No.
Before we enter the courtroom to deep dive into Demi Lovato discourse, I want people to get to know you a little bit better. Let's travel back to where it all began. Please tell me more about you. What kind of music shaped you as a kid and teenager?
I would say introduction to music in general came from my parents. I'm an only child, so it was inevitable. My dad listened to a lot of classic Beatles. He really liked Cat Stevens. He liked the Bee Gees. It was that kind of vibe. And then my mom was fully ABBA all day long. So I would say that was my introduction to music, and I do still really love both the Beatles and ABBA, I would say. And then obviously I was born in 94, so you can kind of predict how I was as a child and a teenager listening to female pop music and not really knowing that all the lyrics I was singing were sexual. So that is, I guess, I don't know, from maybe 8 until 14, 15, that would have been my life. And then I think the biggest turning point would have to be when I first came across Florence and the Machine. It was in 2008, the time when MTV showed music videos, and I randomly was just flipping through the channels and I came across the music video of Rabbit Heart. So this was right before Dog Days Are Over came out and they became a big band worldwide. I feel like that was definitely my introduction to indie music, which is where I find myself going the most. But now, especially I think since COVID, I've just fully embraced and gone back to female pop music. That's where I go now, where I'm at the gym. It's where I go now where I'm in my car, or if I need to just have something in the background, that kind of tends to be where I'm at now. So it's a mix. It's female pop, it's indie, but female pop is has taken over my life in the past 5-6 years, I would say.
So who's your hot female pop star of the minute?
Oh, Adele, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
Speaking of Demi, Adele just opened for her during her tour. I would say she is up there completely. I have liked every single song she's ever released so far, which is not something that happens often. If you asked me the same question a few months ago, I would have said Jade. And I think I experienced the same thing last year with Jade, where I love every single song that she's released. And I also went to see her concert last year, which was really amazing. So yeah, I would say it's been Jade, but now the past, I would say 2-3 months, Adele has taken over. Yes,
You're not
for
only
sure.
involved in pop culture, but also in art more broadly. What first sparked your interest in expressing yourself creatively?
I mean, I've always drawn and painted. That's been a constant in my life ever since I was a really, really young child. And luckily, my parents always encouraged that. And I always found friends who also like to do it. So it was never something I felt embarrassed about or anything like that. I unfortunately am not musically talented in any way. My dad was a drummer and he bought me a drum kit when I think I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. Did not use it at all, unfortunately. We tried guitar, we tried singing. So I appreciate music a lot. And what I've come to appreciate a lot, especially the past few years, is just artist management, creative direction. I really enjoy understanding how certain artists and musicians go about not just marketing or social media, but just how they go about communicating who they are artistically, whether it's on stage, whether it's on their album covers. And yeah, I mean, especially because I come from a very small island where a lot of us know each other. I've been lucky, even through my podcast, to be able to connect to a lot of especially female musicians and artists. And it is definitely something I would love to venture into somehow in terms of supporting artists and musicians with what they do creatively. I guess kind of living vicariously through them and being like, I can't sing, I can't perform. I enjoy watching you do it, but I will help you try to bring it to life in your creative endeavors, I guess. So yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's where I'm at right now, I would say.
And your podcast, Pop Gerlijs, has become such a great space for conversations with women in pop music. What first inspired you to start a podcast specifically centered around these artists?
I have to thank Nina, my friend, who basically takes care of all of the filming and the editing of every episode. She's my, as I like to call her, my right-hand lesbian. We're fully queer here, so, it just made sense. We've been friends for a few years, and I had the idea for, Pop Gerlijs as the title has been there for about maybe 3 or 4 years. It's always been there. It was it would be really cool. The way it's spelled, just in case some people listening have no idea, but it's not in Maltese, but it's a Maltese spelling of the word. It's just a bit of a quirky twist to it, quirky. But yeah, honestly, she really encouraged me to go for it. I was very hesitant at first. I didn't know what it entailed. And then honestly, what we did was we recorded the first 4 episodes in the same week. We didn't really tell anyone we're doing it. We just kind of went for it. We managed to land some really good guests for the first 4 episodes. Luckily, again, people I knew or friends of mine who are in the music industry, and they were very happy to come on. And it just went on from there. It's been a year now, over a year, and it's just really fun. I mean, it's not, a money-making machine by any means at all. It's just a really nice creative outlet. And it's honestly just really interesting to get to know, these female entertainers and musicians on a deeper level. And sometimes things come up during the conversations that I would not have planned at all. I always say, before we start filming, I tell them, this is not a therapy session, but if you end up saying something serious and you want to go for it, just go for it. I try to kind of leave it open, and we have had people crying on the podcast, so that's happened.
What would you say, for someone who just discovered your podcast and doesn't really know where to start? Which episode would you maybe recommend to start with, and why?
The podcast is in Maltese most of the time, but at this point we do have 2 episodes that are fully in English. We have one which we released recently with Julia. She was Miss Universe, and I would recommend that episode just because I can't remember the number right now. I think it's episode 16. Yeah, 16. But it's because she goes into the modeling industry, which we've never done with any other guest. Even though she's Maltese, she had spent time as a young girl, a young woman, modeling in places like Milan and London. And she did see the dark side of the modeling industry. And it was really, really interesting to go into that. And obviously it's in English. I have to mention also episode 8, because she ate Mirjana Conte. She's a friend of mine. I was obviously very happy. We have our issues with Eurovision. I've boycotted it this year. Let's just make it clear. But she is my friend, and she did go last year. She did make a name for herself. She served all of the KANT, CUNT that she wanted to. And that one, it's in Maltese, but it has English subtitles. So if people enjoyed serving cunt, they can tune into that one as well.
I definitely remember her at Eurovision. Yeah. It was one of my favorites of the year. Yeah. But we kind of stepped around the question now. Did you feel there was something missing in the way people discuss pop music online, or why did you decide to do the podcast?
I think, especially from doing the podcast itself, I've realized, unfortunately, how toxic commentary can get, especially from people who maybe think that they know a lot about the pop music industry and how things work. Obviously, we post clips of the podcast, and it's strange. Usually the weird stuff happens on TikTok. I mean, people will literally start attacking very personally, which is just another weird thing. I'm mentioning it because we've also discussed it in certain episodes where, again, because we come from a small island, it's a very interesting dynamic in terms of, we just mentioned Mirjana. Someone like Mirjana, she got a lot of hate locally, which is very interesting. Internationally, there was hate, but most people, especially the LGBT community, were very, very vocally supportive,
Yeah.
whereas the local community were extremely, extremely mean, like extremely mean. And not just in terms of her music, which is what it shouldn't be, you know. If you don't like her music, fine, but having to attack the person personally about their body, about their image, about their personality, it's just, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it does encourage me to at least try to keep on going and try to show another side of female entertainers, especially. I think it's also, unfortunately, a very toxic world for females in general, but when it comes to music or pop music, females are just pitted against each other constantly. Funnily enough, the first episode we ever did, it was me and a friend of mine who competed in the Maltese version of Big Brother. Funnily enough, we ranked our favorite pop Gerlijs. That was the episode. So maybe I'm being I'm going against what I've actually just said. But it is a learning curve because we tend to, I think, especially as maybe LGBT people or gay men, especially, we tend to like to, you know, pit the pop Gerlijs against each other, which could be fun sometimes if it's done in a very, like, you know, playful, non-offensive way, but sometimes it can get a bit too toxic, in my opinion.
That's true. We'll definitely stay on the playful side. And also, what would you say fascinates you most about female pop stars specifically?
I feel like in the past few years, female pop has changed in the sense that, yes, you do have bubblegum pop and you do have, I want to call it cat's eye syndrome, where and I've loved Cat's Eye, but unfortunately, we all know where it's going now. Yes, you can have that sort of very cheesy or maybe very simplified, very, you know, unoffensive pop music where maybe there isn't much creativity or authenticity. But I feel like now female pop has really completely gone into that from my perspective, even if you have songs or lyrics which are, you know, maybe not extremely deep. Funnily enough, mentioning Demi Lovato's album title. But you can still get a sense of the fact that there's maybe a hidden meaning or a double meaning to what they're saying and that there's actually a deeper message. I'm just really fascinated by how female pop stars can be very appealing to the masses and, you know, you have to come up with something which will sell. It can also be very original, authentic, very creative. I mean, I mentioned Adele earlier. I feel like she is a prime example of a female pop star who, yes, you can tell she's influenced by Britney, she's influenced by Christina, there are, by Janet Jackson. There's a lot of influences, but she's managed to merge them in a way which then feels unique. And she's just been able to take on the fact that she's Slovak to a completely different level and make it palatable to pretty much the whole world, you could say. The European market, the American market. So I just find it really, really, really fun and interesting to see females like that manage to make it in, you know, with a USP, but at the same time, it's not forced. It's very authentic, if that makes sense. Very, very natural, I would say.
And would you say your conversations you've had so far for the podcast have changed your own perception of music or how you listen to music?
It's definitely changed how I look at the world itself of music. Again, coming from Malta, we have a completely different reality. Most of the local musicians, especially if we're talking about female pop singers or artists, for most of them, it's not even their full-time focus, just because financially and realistically they can't do that. But I have really come to understand how difficult it is to manage to make it and to maintain that, because yes, you can have your viral moment or your, you know, 2 months of fame where all of a sudden you're on everybody's lips, and then all of a sudden it can just completely die. And it was also very interesting to realize how many of them are actually introverted, which I would have never expected. Not Mariana. Mariana's an exception to the rule. But the younger females that I've had on the podcast, they themselves admit while we're on air, you know, I'm very introverted. I'm actually quite shy. I come alive on stage, but then in reality, I'm actually not the person who's going to necessarily push myself out there and, you know, be constantly on social media and constantly trying to get my music out there. And they would need other people to do that with them, you know, because it's just they find it to be out of their comfort zone and out of their character. So it's definitely been an eye-opening experience. I would like to hopefully start getting more international artists. We have had one international artist on the podcast, and it was really, really interesting because she competed in Eurovision, and we were very blunt and honest about how frustrated we are with the current situation. And it was really, really nice to hear her as one of my childhood favorites to be blunt and say, you know, what's going on is wrong. Something needs to change. It's been really, really eye-opening, and I hope we get to keep on growing, you know.
When it comes to international guests, who would be your absolute dream guest?
It's fun. I have a list. I mean, I mentioned that so I have two lists. I have the very ambitious list. You know, you'll have people like Adela, who I'm like, she has no idea who I am, but she's still on the list.
Yeah.
Then in terms of like the more, I would say maybe realistic list, I don't even know if it would be that realistic, but I would say I would probably want to delve deeper into more past Eurovision artists who maybe now are more vocal about the situation. I feel like there isn't enough conversation about this from artists themselves. I feel like the fandom is very vocal about, you know, the frustrations, and I feel like there needs to be more past Eurovision artists who are either vocal or are given the platform to be vocal. So I am kind of exploring who to speak to. It's just one of those things where I am aware that if I bring it up as a subject even before we record, they might say no. So it's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, I actually do want to maybe speak to trying to remember. I do have a particular favorite female who the thing is, I don't even think anyone remembers who she is, honestly.
Okay.
But she has my favorite Eurovision song of all time. It was from, I want to say 2008 or 2007. She's a Georgian singer. It's very random, but her name is Sofo, I think. I don't remember the surname. But being able to speak to those artists who maybe now have been completely forgotten, it would be interesting as well. I really want to try and delve a bit into that.
What song did she sing at the time at Eurovision?
It was called Visionary Dream. Honestly, the way I can describe it is Bjork, but with a Georgian, like traditional, chanty kind of vibe. I mean, it's an old one, but I think I think she didn't do badly. I think she did manage to get top 10, actually, I feel like.
Yeah.
But no one remembers the song, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where I think it was a bit too ambitious for that time. I think people didn't really get it that much.
Yeah.
I think it would have done pretty well.
Johann, before we officially have a discussion on Demi Lovato, we need to acknowledge something very important here. I mean, we've already talked about it, but to make it more obvious, today two pop podcast universes are colliding. Germany meets Malta. And because of that, I think we need a little cultural exchange program. I will show you 3 German songs that I think perfectly capture different sides of modern German pop culture. And you tell me your honest opinion on the 3 songs I chose. Then afterwards, you have to introduce me to 3 Maltese songs everyone should know, and you'll get my take on them. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with my first song choice. It's the song Wildberry Lillet by Nina Chuba. And this song was absolutely unavoidable in Germany, like everywhere. Festivals, TikTok, clubs, supermarkets. Johann, what's your first reaction? How does the song sound to your ears?
I was not expecting this at all. Again, for me, so this would probably be one of the first proper German songs I've listened to in general. Unfortunately, it's not a music industry I've delved into ever. I've probably only been aware of maybe English songs from Germany.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting. I mean, I can definitely understand what you're saying about it having gone pretty viral in Germany, I guess, or maybe even beyond Germany. I don't know. Because even when I saw the Spotify numbers, I was like, okay, this is a big one. It was really interesting. It was fun to also catch on to some of the lyrics. Yeah, I wouldn't say like it's one I'm gonna necessarily keep listening to as opposed to what's coming up from your list. But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun introduction.
Okay, perfect. I genuinely think this song perfectly captures post-pandemic German pop culture and like the absolute desire for joy. It's slightly ironic, slightly drunk, and always a bit fun. Maybe you like the second song a bit better. The second song I want to talk about is Bauch, Beine, Po by Shireen David. Now I want to introduce you to the German main pop girl energy. Shireen genuinely became one of the defining German pop figures of the last years. Germany's main woman in rap meets fitness core feminism somehow. I'm curious whether this kind of hyper confident pop translates internationally or only makes sense once your brain has been damaged by German TikTok. How do you like the song?
This was a good one. I feel like this is the one that made me, okay, I want to know what else she has, which is typically like my sign of I'm into this artist, I'm probably gonna be into them for a long time. It almost was like if a Drag Race song was actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I can explain it. I did watch Drag Race Germany, by the way, so I'm
Yes, and
trying
she actually was
to.
a guest judge on one of the
Yes?
episodes.
Okay, so I need to rewatch so that I make sure that I see her. So it did give me this like, oh, if a Drag Race song was actually good and like fully what it should be, this would be it. So I definitely want to explore a bit more of what she's done. If you're saying that like she's very, very big, then I'm pretty sure that I will be in for a treat.
Perfect. We're sending love to Shireen. If she ever listens to that bit, you're welcome to be my guest on the podcast. Let's get to the next song. Fahr mit mir 4x4 by Kraftklub and Tokyo Hotel. This band might ring a bell, I would imagine. This might also be the most German millennial crossover imaginable, a collaboration between indie rock band Kraftklub and former German teen pop phenomenon Tokyo Hotel. And somehow it kind of makes sense and is an anthem that shows another side of Tokyo Hotel. If you told people in 2007 that the band would one day become cool indie nostalgia icons in Germany, nobody would have believed it. Does the song surprise you a bit?
I need to ask a question. When was the song released? Because I forgot to check.
I think it was released in 2024.
Because honestly, if I didn't see that Tokyo Hotel were actually in it, I wouldn't have realized. If I was just listening to the song, like someone was playing it randomly and I had no idea what it was, I would not have noticed. I mean, as soon as I talk, and this is the thing, as soon as I saw Tokyo Hotel, my brain immediately went to the Tokyo Hotel that all of us got to know. I mean, to be honest, there was, would it have been maybe like 2007, maybe,
so,
when
yeah.
they were big? Because I remember that year, even here, like you would genuinely listen to their music on the radio, like it was a given. It was an interesting, I don't know why I'm using the word interesting again. I would say it wasn't my favorite out of the three, let's say that. I think I definitely, maybe it's the female pop bias, I guess. It was definitely fun to remember that Tokyo Hotel were a thing, so I need to check them out and see what else they've done since, because I feel like, you know, there was that era that they were big and I actually really liked their stuff and I just really liked their whole image and their style, and then I completely forgot that they make music. So it was a good reminder for me to listen to them, at least. I'm sorry to the other artist on the song, but it is what it is.
The other artists on the song, the band called Kraftklub, they're actually like one of the biggest live acts in Germany, I'd say. And Tokyo Hotel, you're right, they kind of fell off for a bit. But I think it was due to the fact that they were pretty burned out and the twins had moved to LA to get some rest, basically build a life outside of music for a while. And they had a comeback though over, I think 10 years ago now, and started releasing new music and gigging again. They also have their own podcast now. They have a series on Netflix. And
wow.
Bill is doing a lot of different commercials. It's crazy, really.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So as a band, are they still like iconic and pretty big in Germany? I'm guessing so.
I would say so. Like, they have released albums during the last couple of years. Of course, they still have their core fan base, you know, but I would say they're bigger outside of music now. Also,
Okay, interesting.
they are gonna basically host one of the biggest show formats in Germany there ever was, called Wetten das, later this year, because the original host basically stopped doing it and they were offered a job because they're such big names and it's such a big brand now.
Oh wow. I need to look into all this because it
Yeah,
sounds very
please do.
interesting.
It's worth a deep dive. So now I have exposed you to modern German pop culture. Now it's your turn.
So the first one, and they would be very happy about this because they're really sweet girls and they actually tell me that they watch every single thing that I do. So I'm pretty sure they will be watching this. They're a duo. They're called Bloodline. They basically were formed at X Factor Malta, which is a very random story. And here, duos or groups are not really a thing. You're either in a band or you're a solo artist. So to me, they are, I would say, my personally, I feel like they are the artists to look out for. I feel
Yeah.
like they need, bigger opportunities, hopefully, in the future. But this is actually, I believe, they might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is their only original release that they've ever come out with. And if it is, me personally, if it is a sign of what they can make together,
Yeah.
I really hope that we get more original music. It's called Minutes to Midnight. Yeah, I'm curious to know what you think.
So my first question before I say something about the song is, when did they win the casting format?
I'm trying to remember when it would have been. I think right before the pandemic. Yep.
Ah,
Right
okay.
before the pandemic. So it's been a while. So they've stuck together. So
Yeah.
I actually, I had to ask them. I thought that they were like friends for a very long time or
Mhm.
like somehow maybe they're cousins. But no, they genuinely came together for the show and they're still together now producing, writing, and yeah, I'm hoping that we get some more original stuff from them soon.
To be honest, like, spoiler alert, it was my favorite song of the three you sent me. And I think it's due to the fact that it sounds very modern. It sounds international. The production is really good. It's really clear. It sounds like now. So I'm really excited to hear if there's anything else coming up from them, because now you've kind of turned me on to them.
Yeah, I mean, they will be very happy to hear what you've said, and I completely agree. Like, I personally root for them a lot because vocally, I just feel that they're very good individually, and together
Yeah.
they're even better. So, if anyone decides to tune into Bloodline from Malta, try to also check out some of their X Factor performances. We randomly did an All Stars version earlier this year, and they competed again. They managed to make it through a few live shows, but unfortunately, they didn't make it past, I think, the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
But it's just, yeah, I'm just excited to hopefully see what's coming for them.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Also, I'm gonna put Minute to Midnight that you sent to me on the playlist, my Spotify playlist for the podcast. So hopefully more people will listen to them. Let's get
Yay.
to the next song.
So the next one, I believe, yes, is it's in Maltese. It's called Festa, which means feast in Maltese. It's by Hannah, or her full name is Hannah Teuma, but she goes by Hannah.
Mhm.
Um, and just again, a bit of context. This was for a music festival, a music contest that we have here locally, which is kind of like Sanremo-ish. So you
Mhm.
have like a live orchestra and everything, and basically songs in Maltese compete to be named like the best song of the year. And it's obviously all original music. And again, this is her only release. I don't know why, but it wasn't planned, but that's how it's come to be, I guess. But honestly, this is probably, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. This is my favorite song in Maltese ever released, I would say.
Wow, okay, big words.
But I will stand by it, Hannah. I will.
What are the lyrics about? Because I clearly don't understand Maltese. Maybe you can explain a bit.
I was interested to see your reaction because I think if you're not Maltese, you might not fully vibe with it just because it really relies on the lyrical content, even though I think musically it's very interesting. So basically, the way that she wrote it with I have to mention the New Victorians. They're another female duo, they're sisters, and they wrote it with her. I also love their music. I wanted to include them. I could have if I wanted to. And basically, they take the Maltese feast. Basically, in Malta, it's a very Catholic religious country, and throughout the summer, just to give some context, we have these feasts where basically you have fireworks and people meet each other. There's music, there's religious processions, all of that. So basically, they take the Maltese feast as a metaphor for a failing relationship, where she's basically worshipping this guy up on a pedestal, literally like a statue in a church or in a feast. And she keeps going back to him because the feast comes every year. So it's almost like he's her rebound, basically, and she's going back to him constantly. But what I loved the most is the way, again, if you're Maltese, you can only be Maltese to fully get it, in terms of the lyrics are really, really smart because they manage to use Maltese words very specifically and in like a very strategic way to take you through this journey. And I do think that the studio version is really good, but I think, again, because it was written to be performed with a live orchestra, I think that the live version is better. Because you also get to see her come alive on stage. I had never heard of her in my life before the song was released, and on stage she actually goes into full-on choreography. So it's a very if someone was like, what is Maltese music like? This is the song I would play for them, because whether you enjoy it or not, or whether you fully get it or not, it's fully in Maltese and it's very unapologetic, I would say.
I would say it sounded very traditional almost to me, like some parts of it. It sounds like a classic pop song mixed with traditional music.
Yeah.
Also a bit dramatic. You can tell without understanding the lyrics. And I must say, I would love to hear the version with the live orchestra. Because I think it's a bit of a shame that the production doesn't sound as crisp at some points. And I think the orchestra would probably like it would help the song.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. So yeah, I'll have to send you the video to that for sure.
So let's get to the last song you brought.
Yes, so the last one is my favorite artist to come out from Malta ever, pretty much. Unfortunately, she's not active anymore as a musician under the stage name. She still does music on the side, and she still does like production and writing and all that. But this was when her stage name, her artist name was I Am Willow. Her name is Carrie Harbour now, if anyone wants to be interested to look up what she's done more recently. And to me, her music is just, for me, it does the same thing that Florence has done to me. But I think because I know that she's from my own country, it just does something to me. I don't know what it is. And yeah,
it touches you in special places.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to I'm trying to remember what song I sent you now, because I love all her music. And I need to make sure. Yes, Oceanful. And I sent you that one specifically because it had randomly gone viral. The rest of her, like even if you look at literally her YouTube views, this one is like, and the others are unfortunately all underrated. But I would love to recommend her just as an artist in general, if you can look her up, because she does everything herself. It's all by her. And I also have watched her live. Vocally, she's stunning. And this one, Oceanful, I just think it's a very meaningful song, I would say. It's indie music, but it's still quite heartfelt, in my opinion.
Now my impression also makes sense, because I think out of the 3 songs you sent me, it sounds the most like Florence and the Machine. And I know you're kind of a super fan.
So and she's a redhead as well, so even more.
So everything comes together. I think my favorite is probably Bloodline of the three. So yeah, definitely recommend. Let's get to Demi Lovato. We already talked for like over 40 minutes and we haven't really made it to the case,
We'll
which
make it.
brings us to Demi. Because if there is one artist who represents the emotional complexity of modern pop stardom, reinvention, survival, and public scrutiny, it's probably Demi Lovato. Former Disney superstar, vocal powerhouse. I have to scroll. Documentary subject, tabloid fixation, and now dance pop princess. Today we're talking about It's Not That Deep, an album critics loved, fans passionately defended, and the wider public weirdly seemed to overlook. Johann, before we really get into it, what has your relationship with Demi Lovato been over the years?
It's a weird one just because, as you said, I think we're lucky that she's alive at this point because she's gone through so much. I mean, the amount of it's funny you mentioned documentary subject because I feel like we've gotten maybe 3 or 4 documentaries at this point. And sometimes I do question like what is going on because it seems like, things with her change constantly. But then again, you know, I think it has brought us so much interesting music from her end. I do have to say I was thinking about it before we started recording today. I can confidently say that this is probably my favorite album from her, just because it's the one that I can really fully enjoy from start to finish.
Yeah.
I do have a similar feeling about the album with the documentary, Dancing with the Devil, I think. Yeah, that Dancing with the Devil, and then I think the title continued. It kind of had, I would say, the most like fully honest lyrics about how problematic her management was at the time and her battles with eating disorders and with depression. So those two to me really stand out, but it's just been really interesting to see, she went fully rock, almost heavy metal at one point. She's done, she's gone the acoustic skyscraper dramatic could be a Eurovision song vibe. And I think, unfortunately, this album, I feel, has been so overlooked in the sense that, again, it's a big question mark in my mind. So I would be interested to know if you have any like theories or reasons why this didn't do well. Because before today, I was listening to the album again and I listened to the deluxe, which came out very recently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these songs could have easily been huge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird to me that it's ended up kind of. And I'm saying this because I also heard an interview where she was like, I think it was with Kiki Palmer, and she was like, well, this album flopped. Like she very like, but she didn't seem to care, which was actually really nice to see. I think she just genuinely wanted to put something out that she enjoys. She knows her audience. She knows it's the girls and the gays, and she kind of wanted to specifically make it, exactly, make it for them. So I'm happy that at least, hopefully, at least that's what she's showing, that she's not really that bummed about it. But at the same time, it's a bit annoying.
As a kid, were you a Disney kid who was like watching Camp Rock and Sonny with a Chance in real time?
For sure. I probably did not like to admit that. That was probably because it was just all the coming out of the closet process as well. But yeah, it was like, all of the classics, Sweet Life and Hannah Montana and but Sunday with a Chance, actually, I did really enjoy. I was never a Camp Rock. I think I never really necessarily enjoyed the movies that much, but the shows themselves, I always really enjoyed. And yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting time, I would say. Sometimes when some clips come up of those shows, or what I do actually love about Demi is that there are so many memes at this point, especially from those days. The Camp Rock one, I can't remember how it goes, but something like, she's really cool or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how it goes. And the mug one is my favorite meme, I have to mention.
Yeah. You just mentioned Hannah Montana. What do you think Demi represented culturally compared to the other Disney girls like Miley Cyrus?
I mean, I think kind of similar to Miley, maybe in terms of finding their sound and not really being afraid to be out there.
Mhm.
I do kind of see them in a similar vein, I would say. Maybe Miley has gone more of maybe the route where she focused purely on music, whereas Demi maybe was kind of going from one thing to the other and trying to
Yeah.
find what she loved or what she enjoyed the most. But yeah, I mean, I would say, I think what she brings is that vocally, she's just so undeniable. I think that with a lot of, especially artists in general, not just female, obviously, but artists in general who start really, really young, or like we're mentioning Demi, or we're mentioning people like Miley, Selena Gomez, they were fully in all of it from the beginning. It was music, it was acting, it was whatever else they decided to do, selling products, whatever it was. And with her, I feel like just vocally, she stands out completely. Like there's no, at least I think that there's no way that you will ever be disappointed by her vocally, hopefully, whatever happens. So yeah, in fact, this is why I'm like, Demi, how dare you not come to Europe for a tour with this latest album? Because that is just offensive. I was like ready. I was like, honestly, like coming into 2026, I was like, if she does a European tour, she is the one I will go for, just because apart from obviously loving her music in general and enjoying it even when it wasn't necessarily my favorite style or
Yeah.
genre of music, but her vocals are just incredible in my opinion.
True. Also, she's just touring in the US. I don't know if you knew, but maybe that's the reason why she's not here at the moment. Although it would make sense now with the extended version of the album. Maybe, I don't know, it will get legs and it will live a bit longer. If she'd be booked next year for queer festivals around Europe, basically, I could imagine that she would fit on so many bills, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's because management has decided that that is the route she should go, that she needs to keep on focusing on the US market. I mean, even the fact that she's had Adela opening and Adela's set has become as sort of, widely renowned and popular, even when you look at TikTok or social media. People are enjoying going to basically see the both of them in concert, essentially. It's not just her and an opener. So I'm like, come on, you just need to keep that package and bring it here. So yeah, I really don't know what's going on, because I feel like at this point, if she was going to do that, maybe it would have been announced. But then again, as you're saying, with the deluxe version out recently, maybe we're going to finally get something, if not this year, maybe next year, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I fully agree. I hope we see her in Europe, because I feel like in Europe, people really appreciate her, at least with the sound, especially. It would be interesting. I should have actually checked like how it did in the chart specifically, but I feel like literally there's no numbers because it didn't do it. but
I think it's
I
better
don't know.
you didn't check, because it didn't do well in most countries I've looked up.
Yeah, because I don't know. I feel like it's a very European sounding album. In fact, what I
Yeah.
did do is I checked who produced it. There are a few names that are Swedish, which
Oh, yeah.
I would expect all the time, but it is still quite an American team. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, because to me, the album is very European. Personally, I feel like if it had to do well somewhere, it would hopefully be in Europe, but
Yes.
apparently not.
I think it's due to the fact there hasn't been much PR in basically this territory. But
Yeah.
to get to the central mystery of this case, the album had strong reviews, a Metascore above 80. Rolling Stone gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The production sounded current, expensive, and songs like Fast genuinely felt radio ready. Yet commercially it underperformed compared to what many expected from a Demi Lovato pop comeback. The album only hit number 9 in the US, and it barely charted in other territories, as I've already mentioned. Johann, what was your first reaction when you heard the album?
I enjoyed it a lot, but I did enjoy it more the more I listened to it. And I'm saying this because she was definitely very good with choosing the singles, because to me, the singles are probably the strongest songs on the album. Although I do have to mention Frequency. Out of all of the songs on the album and even the deluxe version, Frequency is still my personal favorite out of everything. But other than Frequency, even though I do enjoy most of the other songs, and it was also nice to hear her be able to also go quite full on vocally on some of the songs, even though it's obviously very pop and electronic heavy. And yeah, I think my first reaction was, I like the album. The singles kind of set my expectations very high.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say they weren't met because, like I said, Frequency came out of nowhere for me, and I still remember replaying the song like 3 or 4 times after the first listen.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think maybe that could be a reason. Maybe she kind of set up these really high expectations of like, wow, these singles are like banger after banger after banger, so it's gonna be like an album full of bangers. And I think some of them fall a bit short.
Mm-hmm.
But now listening to the deluxe version, which always happens, to me, from the deluxe version, the first 5 songs could have easily been on the original album instead of some of the others, personally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it doesn't feel like an afterthought to you.
As in terms of like which songs were chosen for the deluxe and or were not chosen for the main one. From like seeing more interviews with certain artists who kind of delve into like why the song was on the deluxe version or not, or wasn't chosen. Sometimes it is kind of really up to interpretation and it's super subjective. So I mean, the same thing happened to me with Jade. I absolutely love the original version of the album from beginning to end, and I also love the deluxe. Church, which was on the deluxe, is probably one of my favorite songs she's ever done, but it was on the deluxe. So in a way, I guess you need to have strong songs on the deluxe to be able to sell that version as well.
Yeah.
I just
Keep
think
people
that
thirsty.
I think especially Joshua Tree on the deluxe, I was very shocked that that was not a main single, for instance. Because that to me just screams single. But then again, I think so many things come into it. All of the people involved. I don't know if maybe she wanted to have an album that is not too heavy on just the electronic stuff. But I feel like personally, that was the best that's come out of both the album and the deluxe version. Like I mentioned, Frequency, Kiss is really full on. It's almost like her version of Guess by Charlie XCX and Billie Eilish, or at least that was my first thought when I listened to Kiss. To me, those are the, fast, those are the strong songs from the album. And then some of the others kind of are on the edge of like, they're cute, but I wouldn't necessarily like replay them over and over. So I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. I'm hoping the deluxe gives it a bit of lifetime, but I mean, now it's been I don't know if it's been a couple of weeks or not since the deluxe came out. I haven't really seen anything like pop up or be like, oh wow, the song is amazing, which is again unfortunate. But so I'm not sure. I don't know.
But probably her most sonically cohesive album. For me as well. Let's get to your 3 favorite tracks off the album. I mean, you mentioned Frequency. Tell me which ones you liked the most.
1, 2, 3.
Am I including the deluxe?
Yeah, let's just include the deluxe as well, because people need to listen to that.
Although, to be fair, even though I really like the deluxe, if you have to tell me top 3, I don't think any of the deluxe ones would make it to the top 3. Joshua...
Then scrap it.
Yeah, scrap it, yeah. I mean, Joshua Tree kind of comes close, but still no. No, I would say Frequency is definitely, like, without a doubt, my favorite.
That's that's so funny that you say that, because it's my favorite track of the album.
I honestly think it could have easily come from a European artist. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if that's the reason why, but I just feel like it perfectly marries the sort of, cheekiness, sassiness, cuntiness that we've now come to love from female pop artists.
Yeah.
As well as, the music being really good, but then it's still very almost trashy at the same time, but in a good way. So I think that's probably why I enjoy it the most. And I just am able to like sing to every single word, which I always enjoy when it comes to female pop. The other 2, this is difficult. I do have to include Kiss, just because, again, it's really fun. And then I'm actually gonna go like full 360, Charlie XCX, full 360 and go with Ghosts. I think, and again, I like to mention this because I think it will make sense to a lot of people. After my dad passed away last August, I turned to music a lot. And this song, I think, yes, the album did definitely come out earlier in the year. I'm trying to remember. But I remember I heard the song and I really liked it. For some reason, after I experienced that event in my life, the song took a whole new meaning. And I came to appreciate the lyrics a lot more, the meaning behind it, the vocals on it. And the fact that it's the last song on the album, and at the end of the song, you get that very, really sad. I don't know how to explain it, but it's she there's like the very you kind of hear her not singing, it's kind of like sped up, distorted, but the music is very sad in the background, and it kind of to me it took me by surprise completely, because I was like, a ballad is coming, right? It's Demi, so a ballad is gonna come. And when it didn't come before the song, I was like, I'm not sure what to expect here. And then she completely took me by surprise with that one. So I would want to mention Ghosts, because even looking at the Spotify streams, it's one of the lowest, which is really sad.
Probably due to the fact that it's just the last song of the album, though.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. I think a huge reason why this album sounds this sharp and current is the creative team behind it. You also kind of mentioned that before, because Demi didn't just randomly return to dance pop. Executive producer Zone is one of the most exciting names in pop music right now, and he has been heavily involved in shaping the hyper-pop sound we currently associate with artists like Sarah Larsson, who's currently experiencing a genuine career renaissance. You can absolutely hear the DNA on Demi's It's Not That Deep. And then there's Leland on the project as well, who's also known for his work with Troye Sivan, the work on his last record, Something to Give Each Other. So another record built around big pop songs, freedom, radical queer joy. I think It's Not That Deep belongs in the same broader pop conversation, to be honest. Why do you think it didn't hit the same highs?
I have this kind of feeling that maybe if it was released a year or two earlier than it was, I think it would have hit at the same time that we got that sort of like unapologetic, female pop. And maybe, I don't know,
Billy and Charlie.
Charlie. I just feel like maybe, unfortunately, the timing somehow just wasn't right. I think maybe people who casually like Demi and aren't necessarily fans of her kind of saw that she came back, they listened to the songs, but maybe it kind of sounded like she was just trying to emulate what other females have done, which is really bad, because again, like I mentioned, we keep comparing females to each other, which is, completely sexist. But maybe that is my feeling, just because I have friends of mine who love Demi and who, were blown away by the album, and she's amazing and she's back and I hope she comes to Europe on tour. But then the rest of kind of the pop female loving community, I didn't really see much love at all, or even much attention towards her or the album or even any of the singles, to be completely honest. So I just have this sneaking suspicion that maybe the timing somehow wasn't right. But honestly, I could be very wrong. But that's just my only answer to your question, because otherwise, no idea.
One of my theories is actually that audiences almost expect Demi to suffer. I don't know, in order to fully engage with her music, because she's been so deep in the past and people are so used to like big ballads and her big voice moments. And the current album is kind of deliberately refusing to give that.
Honestly, I kind of get that. It's funny because you do have Ghost on the album, which is kind of the vocal showcase, I would say, of the album. But obviously it wasn't released as a single, so probably a lot of people don't even know it exists. But what you're saying kind of does make sense, I think, because, I don't know, I think when you think of Demi Lovato, automatically people think of the vocals. In terms of, people who are just casual listeners. So I think maybe, as you're saying, once the singles came out and you didn't really get any vocal moments, you got, fully electronic, unapologetic female pop. It kind of went into the same vein as everyone else. So it kind of was just like, okay, this is fun. That's it. So, what you're saying kind of makes sense, unfortunately.
Yeah. Might Demi just have turned into a legacy artist for millennials, and the success of her latest effort is just kind of exposing that?
Like the Hilary Duff syndrome.
Yeah.
I
Or
want
do
to
you
call
think she
it.
still has some hits in her for the future?
I definitely think so. I mean, again, I think it's crazy to realize how young she still is because we've known her for so long and we've
Yeah.
seen so much stuff happen to her and so many different styles of music. And I am completely clueless as to what will be coming next. But I do have this feeling that she's trying to kind of take it easier and kind of embrace not caring too much about sort of the longevity of her music, I guess. I think she knows that, whatever happens, Skyscraper will always be there, Cool for the Summer will always be there, and she can kind of, go for those. But it's funny, I'm mentioning Cool for the Summer. That is like such a fully electronic pop, very LGBT anthem song. And
It
it's
was basically
still
my favorite
big.
before the most recent album came out, to be honest. And it would
So
also
it's
fit into this world,
Yeah,
sonically.
so it's interesting how like that is still such a big hit. I mean, I want to open it now just to make sure like what her most streamed songs are, and I feel like Cool for the Summer is currently her most streamed song ever. So it's very, very interesting that that worked, but that was quite a while ago now. So
Yeah.
maybe it is a case of the timing wasn't right. Maybe for the time when she released School for the Summer, we all realized that she's queer, and all of a sudden, she's like this gay icon, and the timing was perfect. Whereas now, maybe this album came at a time where kind of been there, done that sort of feeling, which is really sad, but maybe that's the truth.
Also, now that you just mentioned her being queer, she talked about being non-binary, but she kind of took it back as well.
I mean, again, to each their own, everyone has their own journey. I do remember there was a bit of that with Jessie J, where and she has talked, I believe, especially now with her. That's another person we could have easily talked about because the same thing I feel like happened with her latest album.
Yeah.
But there was a time where she, said, yes, I wrote this music about a relationship that I've had with women. And more recently, I saw an interview where she did say, yes, there was I don't identify as straight, like that is not me. But she did admit that her management pushed her, funnily enough, to be like, keep on talking about that, keep on talking about the fact that you're not straight. So then it kind of, she kind of had to be like, yes, but also that is not, my life story right
Yeah.
now. So it could have been a similar thing where maybe Demi was, exploring her gender, and maybe her team decided to latch on to that and be like, push, 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 sell,
Yeah.
sell. And maybe that is not, again, we're saying this because she clearly now has gone by she, her, so, we can do this. But yeah, I think maybe she just was exploring and that was what was meant for them at the time. And now it's a different story, which, fair enough.
It's so interesting because it sounds like her team almost forced her to queerbait. Do you think Demi gets enough credit for letting us in on her emotional struggles? I mean, artists are now openly discussing addiction, mental health, eating disorders. She's started talking about her struggles so early in her career.
Yeah, I mean, I probably she was, if not the first, like one of the first, like really big names to fully lay it all out, and at a very young age. I mean, she was still really young when I remember the whole Skyscraper coming out, and she's like talking about everything she's gone through. I don't know if it's maybe a case of nowadays there's so much content to take in. Maybe there's so much discussion about, these big life events that unfortunately I think it's become oversaturated, which again is really, really sad to say, because when it comes to mental health, eating disorders, these are things that need to keep being talked about, same as sexual identity coming out, etc. But I think, unfortunately, we're seeing this phenomenon now where people who are maybe more conservative or are very unapologetic about how they feel about certain issues can easily make fun, mock openness about mental health, sexual identity, etc. So I wouldn't say we don't give her enough credit. I'm not sure. I just feel like, again, maybe sometimes the way it's transpired, there was always a bit of a capitalistic angle to what's been happening every time. Like there's always a documentary, there's always an album accompanying the documentary, and maybe a movie. Like it's almost like, which go off. If that if that is your story, and you can hopefully still inspire people with that story, great. But I think when sometimes there's always that like capitalistic end to it, and we see this all the time with like these people who come back after a few years and they sit down and have this very dramatic heart to heart, and unfortunately sometimes it comes across as this is happening because we need to sell. I mean, personally, I feel like we're seeing it a lot with, unfortunately, I hate to say it, Jessie Nelson from Little Mix. I feel like at this point, it's like, girl, just calm down. You don't need to do this. Not discrediting like what you've gone through. You've gone through a really bad time, and you've like literally like same as Demi kind of, things are just flying at you in terms of like really traumatic experiences. But I think maybe it's just the people around these pop stars where it's like the people around them, they have good intentions of like trying to help them, get out there and inspire people and still be relevant. But then it's just always about how can we get views on this? How can we get streams? How can we make sure that you can sell a tour or sell a book or something, which maybe is honestly is just the way the world works at the end of the day, unfortunately. But you could really write a whole thesis about specifically just, you mentioned queer baiting. I guess it could be like trauma baiting almost, honestly, at this point.
Super interesting. And now we're kind of getting deeper into the discussion. But I think before we start writing a thesis together on these pop stars, we should get to the more chaotic part of the episode. Let's get to a Pop-Plädoyer staple. It's cross-examination time, Johann. Are you ready?
Dun, dun, dun. Maybe. Let's see.
Quick answers only. No diplomacy, no PR training. Just your spontaneous answers. Miley Cyrus or Demi Lovato in a playful way?
Demi Lovato. Although Miley's voice is amazing, the vocals, and I think I just personally connect to Demi more. I don't know why.
Okay. Camp Rock or Hannah Montana the movie?
Camp Rock. Hannah Montana the movie was not good. I'm sorry to all the fans, but no.
Cool for the Summer or Fast?
Ooh, Cool for the Summer. Not bigger song. I think they're both really good.
Yeah.
I just think that maybe it's because I enjoy other songs over Fast from her latest song. So automatically, I just think Cool for the Summer it still sounds like it could have been released yesterday, personally.
Okay.
And it's just become a queer anthem, I feel.
Yeah. Holy fuck, or It's Not That Deep?
It's not that deep. I did enjoy the Holy Fuck era.
Yeah.
I just didn't really latch on to any specific songs, but I didn't appreciate it.
Demi Lovato as X Factor judge. Genius move or cultural fever dream?
I forgot that happened. Definitely fever dream. Definitely. I forgot that was a thing.
She was on the same freaking panel as Britney Spears.
I mean, that is a whole, like, I've seen, like, from the documentaries and stuff, like what was happening behind the scenes at that time with Britney. So that is even, that was such a weird time. Yeah.
What's your favorite Demi vocal moment ever?
Probably Skyscraper, because I feel like when I first heard that song and then I heard like live performances she did, just the whole song in general, like there's no specific moment, but I feel like Skyscraper vocally is just amazing.
What's her most underrated album?
It's Not That Deep.
Mm-hmm. Christina Aguilera duet, Fall in Line. Who did it better, Christina or Demi?
Again, I forgot that was a thing. As in, who was better on the song? I mean, I'm going to say Demi just because we're talking about Demi. Because honestly, I mean, it was a good duo, I would say. Like, I wouldn't say like one person overshadowed the other, but for the purposes of today, I will stick to Demi.
Sarah Larsson's dance pop renaissance or Demi's dance pop reinvention?
I have to go with Zara, I think, just because it's been such a huge phenomenon, and it's really interesting to see someone who I've known for a very long time and I've listened to her music, and now all of a sudden she's a thing. And it's funny, I don't know if you've seen the TikToks of Maltese people posting how they got to see her perform here literally a few years ago, not even that, like maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And tickets were like €10 because it was a festival. It was her, I think Jason Derulo, and I think Ray was there, or like someone else who was like really, which is crazy. Yeah. Crazy, crazy.
Johann, it's time for one of my favorite categories. What if? Alternate timeline scenarios for the It's Not That Deep era. And you tell me whether you think the album would have become bigger. First scenario. What if Demi had gone full Brad mode? Imagine this. A full remix companion EP released 2 months later. New versions of the songs featuring Zara Larsson, Troye Sivan, Charlie XCX, Shy Girl, and Slater. Suddenly, the album fully enters that hyper online queer pop ecosystem. Do you think that would have changed the trajectory of the era?
I want to say no, just because honestly, we've seen it now literally with Zara, we just mentioned her. And even though people love her and the reception has been good, most people have said, it was a bit of an unnecessary remix album. So I don't know. I think Charlie did it in a way which was really smart and made sense. And I feel like it would just have been, it would have still fallen short, I think, if she did something similar.
Okay, then let's ignore the first scenario and get to the second. This one is dangerous. I generally think Demi Lovato is one of the biggest what could have been conversations in modern pop music. So here's the question. What would actually need to happen for Demi to surpass some of her Disney peers culturally and commercially? I'm talking about names like Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, or maybe even Ariana Grande. Do you think that is still possible in 2026?
I mean, it is possible, but also I'm not even sure if I can agree that she hasn't. I mean, I wouldn't say she's maybe surpassed the names that you mentioned, but I think she still has managed to pave her own way. And again, from kind of seeing more of her recent interviews, I'm not even sure if that's what she wants at the end of the day. So it is possible. I mean, we've seen in the past few years, we mentioned Zara, people pop up all of a sudden and it's something you can't really explain and they can't explain either. So who knows? Or maybe we'll have her featured on a David Guetta song or a Calvin Harris song and all of a sudden people latch on to her being a pop girly again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could happen.
If you were Demi's creative director right now, what would the next move be?
European tour. Literally. Because honestly, again, maybe yes, she didn't chart, but I really, really think that the album itself sounds really European. So automatically, let's see what can happen. I mean, at this point, if we're going to try and milk this as much as we can, let's go for a full-on European tour. And I still do think that that is probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe financially they're not doing that great, so it's kind of too much of a gamble at this point. But I would personally, again, with complete ignorance of the situation and whatever she has going on, but I think it would be the next right step.
I see a world where, I don't know, it's not that deep. It's maybe just the start or a building block where Demi suddenly has a late career cultural explosion in a way that Charlie had it, or even maybe acts like Kylie Minogue,
Or maybe they'll give her the Bond song and then we'll go back to Demi as a vocalist. I don't know.
Maybe. Johann, I can get to the final question with you. Okay, are you ready? Final question before we close the case. And I think this might actually be the biggest question of the entire episode. When we are all old one day, or not even here anymore, what do you think Demi Lovato's legacy will ultimately be?
I hate to repeat myself, but I still think it's the vocals. I have to be honest. I mean, yes, we've seen her be an amazing artist and the genre blending and changing is always really cool to see. I always enjoy it when it comes to pop music. But yeah, I just think that what you think of is that undeniable vocal, which she can bring in at any point. It doesn't have to be a ballad, you can still be impressed by her stamina and just the fact that she can pull it out of nowhere without any sort of, expectation. So I do think that people will continue to remember more her vocals and the meme of the mug.
Perfect.
If you don't understand what that is, guys, look it up.
Google.
You will understand. Demi Lovato mug. That's all you need to look up.
Okay, let's get to the verdict then. The court finds Demi Lovato's It's Not That Deep not guilty of being shallow and of being a failed comeback. The only crime committed here may be that modern pop culture no longer knows how to reward veteran pop stars for simply making an unapologetically strong pop album. Case closed. Thank you, Johann, for being my guest today. For all of our listeners, please listen to Pop Gerlijs, check out the English-speaking episodes, and everything that Johann does online. Thank you, Johann.
Thank you.
Bye.